Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Hot Takes. I'm here with Davide, and Nick is here this week as well. Welcome, guys. It's of course, the off day in MSI right now, so that's going to be the main focus. And Nick, you've been there on the ground, boots on the ground, as they say. How you been finding it?
Yes, indeed. It's crazy, man. The last esports event that I was at in person was before I even worked in esports. 2017 LCS finals, same stadium, same city. So it's amazing to be back, but it has been wall to wall. But really enjoying the series. The MSI format is awesome. All best of fives is crazy, and the energy in that arena has been absolutely amazing in a lot of these series. So yeah, 2 thumbs up for me.
Wicked. Davide, how's your sleep schedule been?
A mess, a complete mess. I've tried to stay up, even though I'm not like a late night guy. And every time I get to the second match, especially because like every time it was like Silver Scrapes or like 5 game series, I'm like, no, I gotta go to bed. I gotta go to bed, and then always had to like wake up early for the second morning and then just try to catch up on highlights. Like I remember having slept through what was it, the last one? So it was G2 against Gam. I couldn't like stay up honestly because I was so dead. And then wake up at the second morning and thought it was going to be a 3-0. And then woke up was like, I was like, I didn't even look at the VOD. I was just looking at tweets. And everyone was like, we're still the scrapes again. Like, what?
Yeah.
And then yeah, had to catch up. So
Yeah, I had the same thing.
it's been tiring, but it's worth, it's worth.
Yeah, I've got the same thing of like this. Well, it's like impossible to watch any live, and I'm getting my updates when I like just wake up and I can barely open my eyes, just scrolling on my phone, and it was the same thing. Like everyone loving it with G2, I was like, oh, it's a pretty comfortable one for them then, and then it like gets worse and worse and more desperate as you keep scrolling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's. I'm glad you guys are finally getting the NA press has to cover any other region for internationals experience. That has been like most of the last 5 years for me, so I'm glad we're finally returning the favor.
I think the most extreme I actually like did properly was Worlds Korea, and when it was like the interviews would start at like 5 a.m. or something, 4 a.m., 5 a.m. I
That
don't
was
mind like an
insane.
early start, but like, yeah, late finish kills me. But there we go. Um, I'm gonna plug you, Nick. So don't get embarrassed. But I
No,
was
please do.
gonna highlight that we have got all of the coverage from the event, either on hotspawn.com where you can see all of the interviews there. Otherwise, do definitely check out the Hotspawn YouTube as well, where you'll get the video versions. Plus, there's maybe one or two that will be on here that wouldn't necessarily be on the site as well. So yeah, definitely check him out. Who's that handsome guy that's in all the things? I don't know.
I don't know, dude. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure he overpaid for that jacket.
By how much do you think?
Uh, I was lucky enough that I didn't have to deal with the $100 of shipping. So shouts out to Mahir for letting me order it to his place in Dallas and then have him bring it across the border rather than pay the shipping price. Because I liked the jacket, but I didn't like it $100 in shipping. So Mahir helped me out.
Nice, good on him. Yeah, let's have a catch up about MSI itself then, shall we? And you guys can fill me in on the drama because, as I say, with the time zone, I'm just getting my like updates in the morning, but it's like impossible to see it live. But what is going on with G2? Because they're through, obviously, but they've not made it very easy for themselves. And I think that 3-2 against Furia was like probably the most shocking of the two kind of scrapes that they've had. So what on earth
Yeah.
happened there?
I'll let Nick
Yeah.
go.
Sure.
I'll let Nick
Sure. So having obviously G2 this split was not the G2 of Legend. They've had some roster changes. They've brought in Skew, and they simply just they weren't the end game G2 that we often see at the end of a split. That being said, there's kind of the assumption, oh, they got to an international, they'll shape up. Caps will start crushing people. BB will get his shit together, and everything will be fine. And they have looked really inconsistent. They've looked like they have a lot of trouble keeping their early game to mid game transition consistent and like minimizing the risks that they're taking. And the truth is that both Gam and Furia showed up in really good form this event, and so a struggling G2 meets these really strong and really aggressive minor region teams, or traditionally minor region teams, and they have been pushed to 5 games by both Furia and Gam, and then fell 0-3 to Billy. So there's a lot you can talk about, but I think the biggest story is, and this is a shocking sentence for me to say, BrokenBlade has looked like maybe the worst player at the tournament so far, and the weakest individual player in play-in stage, and that is a wild statement to make given his pedigree, but he's had great plays, he's had good moments, but in terms of his laning and his early game, he's consistently outperformed by top laners like Gigo and like Kiaya.
I'll just, while you're on that,
I
I'll
have
quickly
a
say...
few things to say.
Hold on, Davide. I'll just quickly
Yeah.
say Ethan's comment that he sent us on BrokenBlade as well, that he offered up to be read out. He said, BrokenBlade is legit looking like the worst player of the whole tournament. Crazy when we know he's been the only Western top to keep up with Asian top laners in previous years. So, yeah, what's going on with him?
Like, I think actually BB, like, he has looked really bad against Guigo, and I think that is true. I don't think he did as bad against Kiaya, who I thought was better than Guigo. So my actually, like, I don't think he's honestly like individually the worst, because there's Gam's mids. Like, Emo was honestly non-existent for me. And there's like Gam constantly switching between the two. Like, they let Emo play the 2 first games because they know that his champion pool technically works. And then once those champions are like are banned because of Fearless, then Aris comes in. I think Emo actually was a bigger liability compared to BB. Even though I feel like, obviously, because of the nature of top lane right now, getting counter matchup in the top lane means that you'll be punished more. But honestly, yeah, like, I agree with the fact that BB is light years away from the BB we've known over the past 2 years. And I think that my main with G2 is, like, I don't see anyone aside from Caps currently that can be like a somewhat consistent player. Or like, Caps actually has struggled a little bit, but he has actually stepped up when needed. I feel like most of the series,
His clutch factor this event has been crazy.
Like, he has been clutching out some games, I think. But for example, like, Hansama has struggled. We've seen him try to, kind of change the way, or like actually stick to what he's comfortable with, which is playing like very aggressive stuff. But it doesn't really work out well with Labrov in the laning phase, and then it doesn't transition well when Skill1 and Labrov have to work together to make sure that they can get leads for either Caps or Hans. And that's honestly my biggest concern about the team. It was like, you're now facing much stronger teams that have much stronger jungle support duos, and I don't think Labrov and Skillman are necessarily bad players. I don't think they still haven't worked out a way to make them work together. And with how jungle mid and jungle support duos are so important at the current state of the meta, and then basically I think that's what will kind of defines the whole tournament. I think G2 will struggle a lot. And then honestly,
for sure, yeah,
it's like they're against Genji,
It was nice of BrokenBlade as well.
It's
to
literally
like,
the worst.
We'll get there.
It was nice of him to
Yeah, we'll get there,
underperform
but it's like literally
after I put him after I bumped him up a few places in my power rankings as well. That was good to see. I stuck my neck out for him as well. Bloody hell.
But honestly, like, for me, in terms of power rankings, I'm doing fine because I put Furia last, I put Gam 9th, I think, and then G2 8th. So technically, I'm okay. But honestly, like G2, if it wasn't for Caps, we would probably be talking about Gamma or Fury making it through, honestly.
Yeah, I think so. Just to sort of slightly circle back to the BB thing, watching this series, because I didn't have any post games yesterday, so I watched it from the floor, surrounded by GAM fans, which was, oh my god, the energy those guys bring is crazy. But every time it panned to top lane, with the exception of like that one kind of inty trying to walk past Cho'Gath on Scion play, Kiaya was outspacing and out trading BB, and that's the consistent thing that I've seen in both the Furious series and in the GAM series, was that when you panned top lane, it didn't seem to matter where BB picked in the draft. The enemy top laner was out trading. You know, he picks Warwick and runs up into an Aatrox, who then proceeds to just like get 6 Deathbringer stances off on him, repeatedly proc heal cut, and BB's like lost the trade at level 2, which is the exact opposite of what you want from the Warwick pick. And none of this to say that like BB is a bad player. There's a lot of like very overreactive rhetoric out there right now by fans, which is like, oh, BB's awful. You got to drop this guy, and it's like, well, no. So far, BB is having, I think, probably his worst international performance so far, like since like what, TSM days. Like, he does not look like himself, but he has a long enough track record of being BrokenBlade that, like, you know, if G2 crashes out of this, I'm not going to start discounting BrokenBlade. It's going to be like, damn, that was a bad performance. Let's see if he can pull it back.
No, and I think as well what makes it maybe more interesting as well is how he's like the G2 captain, and he's meant to be the one that like kind of does the speeches and whatnot, and like helps get the mental set. So I wonder, like I'd like to be a fly on the wall, like in the G2 dressing room, or not dressing room, but like the practice room, whatever. Because the pressure's on him, obviously. Like everyone's the whole discourse is about him playing poorly, and when you've got to be the one to like step up and inspire your teammates, if they look at you not playing too well, it might make it harder to kind of to encourage them, because they're going to be thinking like, bloody hell, you can tell, like trying to gear me up for the match. Can you just like play properly, please? You know what I mean? So, yeah, we'll see if it'd be good if there's like any behind the scenes documentary stuff that they release, or like just the like vlogs or anything like that. Obviously they're probably not going to add in stuff that makes him look bad. I wouldn't think, but there you go. Yeah, it's interesting. What do we make of the other teams then? BLG have obviously just breezed through. I guess that was pretty much expected. But yeah, there's the idea now of like, is there any point having them in play-ins? Like, do we just kind of rethink this a little bit next year and not just stick an elite Asian team in the play-ins just to smash their way through everybody?
Ooh. I don't know, like for me it's actually good to have Eastern teams. It's like you get at least an initial recognition of like a benchmark of who you know, like what level they might go, like might have the top teams. And you can kind of argue the fact that, like, debate on the fact that actually BLG was probably as strong, and apparently they got really sick upon flying to Vancouver. So probably this is not even the best form BLG has. The one thing
On has been coughing up a plague every time I've seen. Poor dude is having a
like Knight or someone else, I think, from the team actually actively said, like, was actually saying on the press conference that they got all sick, some more than others. But I think that BLG has looked fine. I still think they actually came up with some very interesting stuff. I was actually like going back into the series. I think it was against G2 when they picked the G2 played TF, and then BLG countered it with Veigar, which is very, 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 very let's say untraditional, conventional pick in the current meta, but it actually worked because it messed it up because they got the kill over on BB at level 1, and then Knight was actually able to kind of just slowly scale up for like on a scaling pick, and literally like then can take over the entire game. The one thing I have for BLG is that all of these teams that were at planes were just very like they had a decent level, but they were highly inconsistent across each draft. Even like Fury and Gam, I think, when Fury and Gam played each other, I thought actually Gam was. You could see that Gam was clearly the better team if they were put into a condition to play, or like they were getting the drafts they wanted to. But the biggest issue was like, uh, as soon as they were off their comfort or like off their team comms where they play like kind of the best kind of level, uh, they just started to like struggle a lot. And I think BLG has kind of kept more consistent because they've been playing like fearless draft literally the entire year. They've been playing so many BO5s because that's how the LPL works. And actually, I think that's a much bigger advantage coming into this tournament because they've been playing like this all year long, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm with David. Like, I totally think we should always have one, at least one like actually like good Asian team in there. Because real talk, like if a Western team can't beat out like a third Asian seed or whatever, or like a second Asian seed, like we probably just shouldn't be making it out of play-ins. Is the simple truth. Like, I think that should be the bar by which we're judged, and that's also slightly a conversation. Like, I think the MSI format can be improved slightly. There's been a ton of discussion on this, and I don't want to get too into the weeds. But the best proposal I have heard was give LCK a third slot, have one flex slot to be competed between for LTA North, LTA Seoul, and then just put MSI up to 12 teams. Just add 2 more rosters to it, and then you could then pull the Chinese team out of play-ins if you had more teams that you could then fill out play-ins with and sort of change the tone of it. But play-ins is what it is. I think it's good that we have like, you know, generally it's like the 2 teams who are expected to make it out, and then if you're a minor region team, you've got your work cut out for you. You just have to beat one of these teams to make it out, and the other minor region team. And that's something that I've enjoyed because it leads to these moments like we've had this week with like Furia taking G2 to 5 games, you know, almost pushing them down into a lower bracket, and then Gam taking them to 5 games. And like when Silver Scrapes hits, and that, you know, I'm huffing my copium, posting Batman LS memes in the press chat, being like, "There's no way for G2 to come back, for G2 to lose this. Gam can't come back from the EU goats looking this good." I think that's exactly what playing should be about. It should be like, is this the year? You know. And I think a great example of that is like from this year, first stand, not first strike. First strike is the Bruin. First stand, to me was like the story of CFO Oyster, and I think like formatting these tournaments so that early on you can figure out, is there a David versus Goliath? Is there that underdog? And just getting to immediately just throw them into like actual elite competition. I think that's the way to do it because it establishes stakes and lets you sort of build an affinity for these rosters that you don't know when facing off against the 2 more established ones.
Definitely.
That gave me like very DRX 2022 vibes, you know? Like the whole thing about no one literally, like they just thought, oh, they're just coming here because they got lucky through LCK regional playoffs. And then out of nowhere, they were like, oh, this team is actually really good, you know?
Well, we just had
And
it
then,
in.
oh, we actually beat T1 and we're the world champions.
Well, they just had it in, you know, Masters Toronto as well. Wolves Esports were China's 3rd seed, and everyone wrote off all the Chinese teams.
Yeah.
They were like meant to be the worst team in the tournament, and then they've had this like crazy run, and it can help, I guess. Well, it seemed to sort of help a bit, especially for them. If you come through the play-ins and you get a few wins against like some weaker teams, and then you go into the playoff stage like with loads of momentum and you're fresh, whereas the other teams have not played and they're a bit rusty. I suppose like for BLG, like you could maybe make that argument. Like they've just had 2 3-0s. They should have. I mean, they would have expected to 3-0 that both teams probably, but they'd have like plenty of confidence going into playoffs. I guess like illness may counteract that and actually make that worse, that they're just more tired already. But you never know. It could it could help them go into playoffs with confidence as well.
I've always been like very pro of like teams, like strong teams that really want to get into form for the bigger bracket stages to actually go through like kind of handicap themselves into a position, and then actually that gives them like an advantage, because once they go onto like on stage in the like later matches, they actually are already kind of warmed up in that sense. It has happened a lot in LPL playoffs, even though no one actually made an entire like full run on, aside from I think there was a team that did it a lot this year, or was it last year? But like a lot of like LPL playoffs teams, like if they start from the end of the bracket, they'll probably like at least make 2 to 3 rounds, and they'll beat stronger teams on paper, just because they were already like gotten used to playing the BO5 and then handling all the pressure around it. So I think actually I have a higher expectation for BLG coming into the bracket stage compared to how I had prior to the start of the tournament, especially given how the fact that they're technically kind of sick, they were sick. So if they can kind of get that fixed as well, I think their form will be better.
For sure. And I think it helps even just, especially on like a big tournament like this, having played on the stage too. So they'll be comfortable there already when they go into the first round of playoffs. Their opponent will be under the lights, and it's their first game and all the pressure's there, whereas BLG would have kind of got over a little bit. Shall we talk about?
Very unlucky that we got.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to get that to talk about the because we got him Koi, and it's like this is not good.
Yeah, let's jump over, shall we? We do our pick'ems, but they're on my account, so I'm gonna get the rewards.
I've done mine
I'm gonna
on
not
my
get the
account, but no, it's fine. Just we'll do it then yours. But I have like, if you want me, I can tell you like the whole thing, and then we can look at each individual matchup. Otherwise, you just decide.
Well, let's go through them first, and then let us know if there's any differences. But that first one's a bit brutal to start with, isn't it? Brutal for Gen G. Obviously, it's easy for G2, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with BB in this form, I don't know what they can do. Like
against Keen as well.
What chance does a mere man like Keen stand against the Warwick god?
Yeah, I feel like that's like almost not even a discussion. But is there any world that we see G2 come out and? I mean, maybe they could take a game, but like I just can't. I couldn't imagine.
I totally think there's a scenario here. If BOG's team room is way too close to Gen G, and Gen G gets whatever sickness is ripping through BLG, and they get like fully sick on stage, I think G2 can probably take it in 5.
Well, we'll see. It could happen.
Honestly, if they get one game, I would be extremely happy.
Yeah, I would...
Even if it's like a robbery game, I don't care. If it's like, if Gen G messes up and then G2 somehow gets a 3-1, I'm like, okay, it's fine. It's better than nothing.
I feel like at least if they could get one game, like they'd have a bit of confidence off that going to the lower bracket. I mean, that's like clutching at straws. Like if we only lose by 3-1, that's actually quite good, but it doesn't help for the rest of the tournament. But I mean, if they get 3-0'd, it's 3-0 compared to 3-1, surely must feel quite different. But yeah, I don't see.
The simple truth is just like Gen G have looked so good. I haven't caught every game of LCK this split, but I've sure caught a lot of Gen G games, and Chovy really wants that Hall of Legends skin for next year. He's really set on getting that Hall of Legends skin.
No, there's too many old players to go through. He'll get his in about 25 years, I think, at this rate.
I don't know. This guy has been playing out of his mind. Like I still just think back to that LCK graph where it's the like hexagon or octagon of whatever of like the various like player traits, and Chovy's is just filled out, and everyone's else is like janky stars, and his is just like literally to the brim, maximum on all the sides. That team's crazy. That team's nuts.
Right then, anyone's legend FlyQuest. It should be one-sided still, right? But I feel like this one's it's clearly much more.
I don't think it's going to actually be one-sided as much as people think,
Yeah.
Like, I have high hopes for Fly. which can be bad because obviously the more expectations I have, the higher the disappointment can be. But like, I'm actually pretty high about this matchup. I don't really care who wins or loses necessarily because it's upper bracket. I just think that Fly will be able to put a decent show against AL, and if that they are able to deliver based on the expectation I have for them, I have good hopes for them to actually make a good tournament. Even though my pick'ems don't need necessarily reflect that, but we'll get on it. We'll get to it later.
Well, to be fair,
I think in particular. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, like with Anyone's Legend, we talked about like Tarzan being like the main man for them, and of any of like the Western junglers, I mean, Inspired is like the best Western jungler for the last few years probably. So if there's any if there's any matchup for East versus West that could come out in favor of the West, I feel like it's that one where Inspired could shut down Tarzan. But yeah, go on, Nick. What were you going to say?
Yeah, really, like I'm given hope by this match by just thinking to like the FlyQuest versus Gen G series, which is like FlyQuest will throw all the tech they have at the wall in this. Like they're not going to hold anything back. You know, they're going to pull up Fiddlesticks and rush Baron at 20 minutes. They're going to find some weird pocket picks. And so I have hope because I know that like this Fly roster has proven that they can and will just like throw everything and the kitchen sink in an attempt to try to beat these teams. AL is scary as hell. Shanks is on a tear. Tarzan's crazy. You know, again, just another really, really solid LPL team. But FlyQuest is the best team we've sent in years. So like, I've decided to go with the Copium because this is one of the few times in years that I'm like, you know what? I think we actually could take this series, but you know, betting man's odds, I think AL does take this, and then FlyQuest has to fight it out of lowers.
I think it's head versus heart. This one. Are we going with the head then?
Oh yeah. Go with the head. For my pick'ems, I'm going Fly because I need to believe. I need a Canadian to win MSI, so it's MCOY, G2, or FlyQuest.
Mm-hmm. And plus, I mean, FlyQuest's got plenty of European representatives as well, so that would count. That would be a win for EU.
Yeah, exactly. We can share it. If FlyQuest or MCOY wins, then both Canada and EU get to like share some bragging rights and make fun of America.
Yep. Well then, CFO T1 after that. What are we saying?
I mean, it's quite easy technically on paper, but actually I don't think the series will be as easy as people might predict. Like I'm actually expecting some at least one close series, one close game.
Again, like T1 is T1. You know, we could sit here for ages and talk about like what the T1 roster offers, but like the listeners have heard that over and over again. The thing to me is just like I never saw what CFO did at first stand coming. I was supremely impressed by them, and so I will still predict T1 in this series as I often do at international events because I spent too long picking against Faker and him winning anyhow. I'd pick T1 here, but like really, if CFO like come out swinging and like look like they can actually like match T1 in a couple of games, I would not be surprised at all. This roster is incredibly good, and yeah, I'm really excited to see them.
Yeah, we'll go T1 then. But to me, that one looked like maybe the most realistic of upset potential of the four. But yeah, we'll see.
Ooh, no. Actually, like in my we'll get to it now. Actually, I put MCOY beats VLG. It's very copium. It's literally copium.
At 4 a.m. our time, I got a message from Ethan. I think Mad Koi will beat BLG. I'm not going to push it too far.
I said the same thing.
But I even believe they can kind of stomp them, he said. So are we going?
Okay, no, that's a bit of a stretch.
I think we're going for a Koi here.
I hate to add to the copium, but I think so too. I think MCOY actually, and this might be more controversial than like they can stomp them. I would put like my money would be on like 55% MKOI, 45% BLG going into this blind. I think MKOI again has exactly the sort of types of players that you're going to want to beat the lowest seed LPL team, and the way BLG plays. And in particular, I think Merwin is how this team lives or dies against BLG. I spoke to him. We have an interview. Shouts out to the MKOI fans for flooding that thing with love. You guys are awesome. But he's cooking up some secret tech. And like, listen, in Fearless, if you can like take what somebody thought was a lock for another role, rotate it top, and then bully Bin in with Varus or whatever. Obviously a tough ask, but Bin is not like Giga Bin that he has been in past seasons. This split, obviously he's still Bin. He's still very, very good. You're never gonna like counter him on Jax because he knows the matchup better than you. But I'm really, really hopeful for MKOI, and just stylistically, I think it could be a good matchup for them. I really do.
I mean, especially with
whole
like
thing for me,
illness,
it's like
if it keeps going, it could be getting worse over the next few days. Depends what illness they've got. It might have just been the early signs of it. So
yeah, or like or who the other thing is like that is a real thing of like On is the only one that I know of. Like On Knight mentioned some others, but like I don't think the whole team's sick. But they're in proximity to the people who are, and like there may be an extended wave of like these health inconveniences going through BLG, and like your match time doesn't change if you feel like garbage and have been sick for a couple days. You still got to rock up there. So we shall see. But certainly of any of them being an upset, I think MKOI have probably the best chance given the relative strength of their opponent, and then just how good they sort of unexpectedly looked in LEC this split. Yeah, I want to give them more props than be like everyone else in LEC choked. So I'm actually giving them a slight edge against BLG. That might be copium, but I feel it in my heart.
The one thing is like for me, it's like I've actually rated BLG very high coming into after seeing them playing planes. The one thing that I'm mainly looking at for this matchup is actually mid and jungle. I think Eliolia has technically a lot of leeway over Beatron in that sense, and I think he will be the key to the win if the win comes. I'm not really sure about Mirwin Ben, honestly, because I think that will be a lot matchup dependent. So drafting, like the whole draft process will be very, very important. I think we could argue that it's like bot lane is a similar level, honestly, current form. Even though I think Elcon used to be stronger, I think Supa and Alvaro actually have stepped up a lot. And yeah, so like the whole pressure will be on Beitron, and then between how he performs and then how Elio performs, I think that will kind of decide the series for me. And there's obviously, I mean, copium from this side. I don't want to kind of hide it, but I think there will be some upsets here and there in the upper bracket. And I think if there is one that can happen, I think it will be this series. I would be surprised if we get upsets in any of the three matchups. I would predict in that sense to have something happen here.
No, we're locking in.
Yeah,
we're locking in MKOI. But also, it's going to be JoJo's international debut in Canada as well. I'm hyped for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm jealous of you, Nick, to be in the arena like when he walks out. That's going to be sick.
Yeah, no, I am incredibly excited. We have a really fun interview with JoJo plugging the YouTube, where I talked to him a lot about this. But yeah, the last time esports was in Canada was in 2017, and I asked JoJo what he was doing in 2017, and he said he was in 7th grade, and he wasn't sure if Fortnite was out yet. It was, to be clear. I was in college. I remember. But and now here he is making his international debut. The next time it's back in Canada, and like, yeah, the simple truth is like his time at C9 was, maybe a little bit contentious from the sounds of it. But this guy is a superstar talent. And we are sending some amazing Canadian players in Masu and him to go represent the region. And I know both of them want to put on for their country. We don't get these events often, and so I'm incredibly excited to see this many Canadians. I'm a little sad we don't have a C9 here, so I can also have Vulcan. But yeah, Jojo is an incredibly exciting talent, and I think there's a very real thing of like he's making his debut on home turf in a country that doesn't get these events often, and I think that will be driving both him and Masu, at least to some extent, of like, you're in the hometown arena essentially, or as close as we can get. So time to put on.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing like some players could kind of crumble with that as well. Where it's like just extra pressure of all the crowd having their expectations on like you as one player as well. But then I feel like with Jojo, he's like that kind of confident, cocky guy. Like I feel like he could just turn up and have like the tournament of his career off all of that as well. But there we go. Let's keep going, shall we? So MKOI winning that one 3-0, we're saying. Although we don't have to commit to a score, so that's fine. Let's do the upper bracket. Oh, let's do the lower bracket first. So that leaves G2 against
Sure.
Fly.
That's such a tough match in any other event but this for me. But the truth is, like, unless G2 shape up in a way that they have not in play-ins, this goes to Fly. At least in my eyes. Like,
Yeah.
Fly can match every one of their lanes.
Oh, we're losing Nick a bit, I think.
I
Yeah.
think in current form.
Hold on. Let me just
And I actually
Internet is playing a
him.
bad game.
let me mute him for a second. Oh, there you go. He just muted himself. Just so that we could talk while his internet's catching up still.
Yeah.
What do you think? So, yeah, like I think before the tournament, even with G2 not having the best player ever, you might still edge it for G2. But then, if they're struggling against bloody Furia, is this not like a FlyQuest? Surely favourites, aren't they?
I mean, I've actually always thought Fly would win, regardless of play-ins, not play-ins. Just because of how impactful, like, Inspired has been for the team, and then just generally how the ceiling of the team has looked infinitely, like, very, very, like, much higher than G2's in current form. The one thing with G2 is, like, I'm not really sure what would be a solution to work their way out of this. Because, like, they've been trying to figure this out for half a year already. And it clearly hasn't been working out. Like, the players are good. You know that it's, like, you probably got some of the best players in their roles. They just don't click. Or, like, they haven't been able to click as much. And I think for Fly instead, it has been much better just because of how they've been able to maintain this roster from last year, and they've been constantly working towards that, So I think for me, it's easily Fly.
Am I not a blur of Lovecraftian
I think you're
colors
fine
anymore?
again now.
You're fine now.
Welcome back.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, Dovi made a ton of great points. In particular, I look to the fact that well, he has been clutch as hell in game fives. Caps has not seemed necessarily like himself. He has had some awkward moments, especially leading up to game five. Both game fives against Gam and Furia, he's like the reason that they win. He hits a 3-man anti-ult against Gam to just completely win the game, and against Furia, he locks in Yone and just starts popping off. But Quad has been so incredibly consistent for FlyQuest the entire split. the amount of Talia shoves that this guy hits, that just like solo wins games, all split long. I think that Fly does have an advantage. Notably, I think their bot lanes are about even, maybe like advantage to Busio. But I think in mid and in top potentially, because if BB is looking off of his game, one of the things that FlyQuest did domestically that gave them, I think, a lot of leeway to really perform is Whippo just disrespects the enemy top's comfort picks. Just says pick whatever meta pick you want. I've got something in the pocket. I'll pick Shen. I'll pick earlier on Yorick. I'll pick something that you're not expecting into you, and you can just take whatever you want, and then I'll have tech for it, and you're not going to get the matchup that you expected. We're not going to trade meta picks here. You're going to pick something, and then I'm going to pick something that has positive interactions into it. And if BB is looking like he has, I think that could be a real problem for G2, in that unless they're holding up counter picks specifically for BB into Bwipo, which I don't think is a great game plan for like attacking FlyQuest, I think BB could be a very obvious weak point for Fly to attack in a lot of ways. Obviously, G2, never count G2 fully out at an international. But with the difference in consistencies between these teams and just like sort of the levels of play that they've had this year, G2's figuring out a new roster, and Fly is knuckling down on the roster they've had for a year and a half now. I would give this to Fly. And by a non-insignificant margin, but not to say that G2 can't just, magically get it together over the course of a couple days and come back.
Mm-hmm. Let's I think we give it to Fly then. And then after that, CFO BLG, that's got to be BLG, hasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
That's good.
It's a bit unfortunate
again,
of the bracket, but yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that like CFO has to play into these two teams. And like, hey, if they upset, CFO will have continued to shut me up at two internationals this year. But I'll do what I did at First Stand and say that I don't think we can expect them to punch up into LPL going into the match. And if they do, that it will be an amazing story. But I don't feel comfortable picking CFO above even a weak BLG.
Yeah. That's
Would you pick it over MKOI though? Like, do you think MKOI would be better? Because like in case BLG, yeah.
I think MKOI might be a better matchup for them, like stylistically. But the problem I think is like CFO do thrive on chaos a little bit. They want you to start like this is casting my mind back a bit, is like I remember CFO wanting you to start getting a little desperate, wanting you to start feeling like you have to make plays and then picking apart micro mistakes and snowballing those. And I just don't think that BLG is going to be making a ton of those into them, because CFO is very, very good. There is still a very real like regional gap between these teams. It's tough. I think though, like no matter who falls down here to face CFO, I think I would probably predict them to be going home.
Yeah, same. I think so.
Let's we've got to finish the upper bracket. It doesn't let us just do this, does it? Oh yeah, it does. Yeah. Should we just fill that in quickly then before we go up? No, yeah. We'll come back. We can come back.
Yeah,
and do it properly. But Gen.G, anyone's legend. Is there anyone that we think realistically could challenge Gen.G? Is that anyone's legend? Because for me, like I just see Gen.G win the LCK without a single defeat, and then for me that just makes them like de facto favourites to win any game they could get at MSI. But yeah, what do you guys reckon? Is this one going to be close to the
T1 has a chance.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think they are favorites. And certainly like if you ask me who's going to win this, gun to my head, it's Gen.G. But I have too many times in the past 15 years been like, Faker's not really that good this year, man. And then Faker shuts you up. So if there's any team, it is the T1 roster. But Genji have looked so good. They look like a completely different monster. And again, Chovy is just like going Super Saiyan this split. I think it is hard to predict AL above them because if AL beat them, that will be an upset, like a pretty big upset in my eye. Genji are a pretty clear favorite to take the tourney, but T1 could do it because they're T1.
Actually, my anticipation about this matchup is not necessarily like who wins. I mean, I'm expecting Genji to win, of course, but the whole thing for me is like I kind of want to see Canyon Chovy against Tarzan Shanks. That's like
Yeah,
a very interesting matchup because Tarzan. We've talked about this a lot of times. I think I highly rate highly, very highly. But like Shanks, this is first international. I kind of want to see how he does against other international mids because he's been basically, you could argue that he has been like the best or the most consistent, but not with the highest potential in the LPL. This half season so far. Because I think honestly on a peak level, like not definitely better. But it would be good to see how, like, whether actually the duo, the synergy between the duos actually make any difference. But yeah, like for me, it should be like, even in this case, if AL takes one game, I think is a good result. Forces Genji to 5 games, it would be great. If it's a 3-0, if there are 3 close games, I would still like think it's good for AL. Because I don't like, I've rated AL very highly, but I don't have expectations from their side in terms of what result they need to get. Because of
absolutely.
LPL previous bias, because of top esports, I kind of stopped trying to place Chinese teams as highly, which then also kind of then will be reflecting in my pick'ems because I did the T1 Genji in the final. But I think it will be just a really good learning experience for AL.
Yeah, I think the real answer is like, who wins this match? It is going to be the fans. These games are going to be bangers. Both of these teams don't like having enemy champions on their screen. And yeah, I cannot wait for hopefully getting to see AL and Genji play off. It's so cool that they're on this side of the bracket too, because then, as Davide says, we can get Genji T1 and still see LPL number 1, LCK number 1 face off.
Yeah, and then depending on how the rest goes, we could see it again in the final.
Yeah.
Never know. Let's see. T1 MKOI. Probably T1, isn't it?
T1.
Yes, yeah. Like, as much hopium as I have, I don't have it enough. Like, it's not enough.
Yeah. But then who wins the LCK clash in the upper bracket final?
It's Genji. Genji.
Yeah, you have to say Genji after watching them play T1 this split. Again, we can be proven wrong, but these teams have played, and Genji was the better team, and by a significant margin that looked pretty consistent and like replicable across patches.
So then we've got
Fly. I mean,
in the lower bracket then MKOI Fly.
Don't make me choose between my boys, man.
That'd be good. That'd be a sick storyline as well, like FlyQuest going through the LEC run.
I can't choose between my Canadians.
I feel like this one's more one-sided than Fly G2, isn't it? Just obviously Fly.
I don't actually think so. I think this is a very close series.
I don't know.
I'm
Lee must be an MKOI hater here. What?
No, not at all. I don't know. It just FlyQuest are pretty good, aren't they?
I think both. Yes, Fly. Let's be clear. Fly is very good, but against like we saw against C9, a good team that just plays really solid League of Legends into them and lets Fly get a little too hyphy, pick a little too many fights. Because the Fly we saw in playoffs will do that. They will try to push their advantages like really far. And that's how they're winning so many games and why they look so strong and why they are the best team in the region. But we saw C9 really manage to stuff them several times when Fly would just sort of overcommit and just sort of like set their minds on, we're doing this play, we're going to go here, we're going to try to kill this person. And they'd overcommit, spend too many resources, and then C9 would take it back, take a game, take a fight, whatever that may be. And I think that MKOI at their peak can absolutely do that. And also, as much as I love my boy Bwipo, I think the stuff Mirwin is cooking up top, Bwipo's like sort of box of melee tech characters probably has a lot harder time into somebody who's just like, yeah, I'll play that first pick Varus that we just took on red side. Like I'm more than happy to take range tops into Bwipo, and contextually what I've seen is like all of Bwipo's tech has been into melee tops. Right, it's Shen, it's Sion, it's Cho'Gath into Yorick. But despite that, he is still having these moments of inconsistency where he's losing these fights and losing these trades and getting behind in lane. And I think Mirwin, given his champ pool and given his willingness to like also get weird, may be a good answer to what Bwipo's been doing this split, because Mirwin's picks, Bwipo wants you to get cute and then he'll counterpick you. Like he wants you to just sort of pick your comfort champ and then he'll find a piece of tech for it. Whereas Mirwin will pick some like war crime ranged top laner, not interact with you for 10 minutes except for just like autoing you down, chunking you out. And I think that's exactly the sort of thing that can shut down Bwipo. And when Bwipo is shut down and not allowed to have resources, he starts to go for risky plays, as we've seen this split. And yeah, I think there's a game here. I think there's a very real series here. And while I think Fly has the edge, like I don't think it's not close,
Mm-hmm. Who's your
And maybe
your
maybe
favorites?
I'm very like MKOI bias. But I think the series will be close. I just think that MKOI will be the one winning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think either prediction here is totally fine.
Like
These are
aside
two
from Merwin, aside
really
from the
good
Mirwin thing, I just think
Yeah.
that the two keys are top lane and then support. Because I feel like Inspired is a player that can play different ways. Or like he can kind of adapt his play style. He's obviously I think he's still better than Elioya in current, but I think that the jungle support from MKOI is better. Or like they're stronger at like doing high tempo things more than Inspired Brazil does do. Or like, so I think that will be kind of the key, especially when you're looking to play around like this kind of counter picks. So like you're looking to make stuff happen because you know that that's the way MKOI is very comfortable at pushing out leads and then closing out games. I think like Fly will kind of struggle more.
Yeah.
Yep.
I also think that
counter.
there's a very likely world where a lot of this series comes down to like the Supamasu show, right? Like both of these guys are really good, really consistent AD carries. And in two teams that tend to like to play like relatively, unless Merwin's like really cooking, relatively standard League of Legends, they can, these guys can put up huge numbers for their team. But yeah, if we get this match, I'm going to be incredibly sad to see a Canadian knock a Canadian out. But like, oh, it's going to be good stuff. It's going to be good League of Legends if this happens.
For sure. Well, let's go for Koi, and then interestingly, that would set up a Koi BLG rematch in the lower
You
bracket.
think AL loses to BLG?
Wait, where did we have? Oh shit, we didn't talk about that one, did we? Yeah, I forgot that. I just clicked that earlier. Good point.
I think AL beats BLG.
Yeah, I would guess that too. I mean, it's just a rematch, isn't it? So
Yeah, it's very hard though, because like I think like I think honestly AL and BLG are very close right now. You know that obviously like in terms of ceiling BLG has better, but I'm not sure what kind of like I would probably this match I would probably have to see how AL plays first, you know, or like how they show up against Fly, for example, to have a clear idea on whether actually I think AL is still better than BLG.
Yeah.
If we were to rate it from current form, I would still say AL is better. Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, you sort of, especially when it's like these teams who have played in their domestic region, you just sort of have to, before we get to see AO play, you just sort of have to assume that the power dynamic is roughly the same as it was, unless something big has changed, which it hasn't really. But you know, yeah, we need to see what AL shows up, but certainly when they've bested them in the LPL split, then I think, you know, going in blind, you probably got to predict AL.
Sure.
I just think it's going to be Tabe diff.
Tabe's
It's
crazy, man.
like I'm not sure. Like even if like Genji, like AL comes close to beating Genji, I think there will be some stuff like Tabe comes up with. Because he has honestly been playing against Genji and T1 for literally the last 2 years, you know, constantly
Yeah.
on different rosters. So he'll know.
Yep.
He'll
Sure.
know better.
Right then, next
And
round we've
Koya,
got
I mean,
Koi, anyone's legend.
I actually think AL is probably MKOI's biggest kryptonite at this tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I think
Yeah.
that
Totally.
AL is literally like a better version of MKOI. Or like a more stable version of MKOI.
Yeah.
They have a really strong jungle mid. You could argue that they have different tops, but the one thing that for me it's like if Mirwin is the player that kind of tries to become the X factor for his team, Flandre is the one that nullifies the X factors. So he's the one that he's going to be chilling out and just making sure he can get by. And I think that will be a kind of Mirwin's biggest like potential issue coming into this matchup, just because he'll know he has to do something for his team. Like he'll probably get one of the best weak side top laners, and then probably the rest of the map will struggle because technically AL has the better team, like has the better players across all the other four roles.
Yep. Let's go AL then.
Yeah.
And
Bang
then,
on. Bang on, I think.
Yeah. And lower bracket final, T1 AL. Crunch time towards the end here. These are getting tough.
T1, I think it's really tough. But
Like my
listen,
whole
either team can win this.
like I'm basing my pick'ems was based on the T1 I saw at the last two series. You know, it's like the one I saw at if T1 shows up as in the same way as they showed up against KT and Life, I think this would be the bracket. If it's the T1 that shows up before that,
Yeah, if it's like week 4
I
T1.
honestly I would even probably come to say that T1 could potentially lose against MKOI, you know, up in the upper bracket. So I think that for me it's like T1 has been notoriously known for doing a little bit more than other teams and internationals. Always, even when they technically weren't as strong. Comes to mind to me MSI 2023, where they struggle a lot. But even if they didn't, like I think they came third or fourth. I'm not sure, but it's like I mean, it was an LPL full final, but like at least they still showed up against the Chinese teams when they had to play them, with very close series. I think T1 has kind of that clutch factor that will eventually push them, even in a series against AL.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking about the T1 we saw in the last two series,
Yeah.
if it's not, it's probably AL. Yeah.
I feel like for I mean, just for a more interesting final as well, it's probably better if it's T1. Then we get T1 Gen G in the grand final, Chovy versus Faker. But to be fair, that like the T1 like international diff is more worlds, isn't it? Like it's not really MSI so much where they just suddenly become a better team.
Not not necessarily historically, but the simple truth of it is like there's a switch on Faker that just sometimes flips, and then he's the unkillable Demon King all over again. And that's not to take anything away from like T1's amazing roster. It really is just like they've won the last 2 world championships after a whole lot of talk about like how oh, this year they're not actually that good, and so when we're back in a T1 dynasty, I think you got to put some respect on the name, even if like necessarily the pattern isn't there. These are back-to-back world champions again. Like going into the world this year, I think you gotta, again, no matter what the regions look like, have an eye on T1 if they're there, because like Coma has proven that again we don't have the Zoff GK roster anymore, but the core of this team can win world championships, and so this is an incredibly close match, but like, man, if the T1 ceiling is like potentially on par and competitive with Gen G.
I think with the T1 world stuff, the way I see it is like probably as a tournament, MSI is harder to win because it's double elim, more best of fives. You can't like you can't either like really fluke an easier run, or you can't just like aura diff people that like Faker does, where it's like you get into the single elimination bracket at Worlds, and the pressure's all there, and like nerves could get the better of you, whereas Faker's done it like a million times already. So I feel like maybe MSI as a tournament is harder to win. The Worlds final specifically is probably the hardest to win because that's where you've got all the pressure. But for Faker, he's not to say he wouldn't feel any pressure, but like it's not quite the same for him. Which goes to say, like, I wouldn't see them upsetting Gen G, I don't think, at MSI. But I could see them like just doing another ridiculous Worlds run.
Yeah, I can totally see that. But at the same time, you look at it, once T1's knocked down into lower bracket, you're facing Faker in single elim. Like, if you're not in upper bracket, it doesn't matter that MSI's double elimination when Faker comes into your lobby. You've got one match against Faker or else. And, again, not to say that, like, you should expect T1 to win this, but just that, well, I would absolutely predict Gen G to win this match. T1 is T1, and if you count them out, they might just win out of spite. Is what my experience has been with T1 over the years. Is like the second you go, all right, guys, time to dust off the rocking chair. I don't know if you've got it anymore. They will shut you up very fast, and so I'm. This is also just like somewhat trauma from that, just being like you cannot count Faker or T1 out because they will just like flip a switch and go crazy. It's not Worlds. I do think Gen G wins this. I do think Gen G takes home the title. But if anybody's gonna stop them, like the most likely scenario to me is like a resurgent T1 that comes into like international form, and then loses the first series against Gen G, but then rebounds from lower bracket, and then if you meet Faker in finals, it's just one best of 5. Same as a world finals. At the end of the day, you win or you lose.
My whole thing is I just hope we get a really close series. Like I kind of don't want to see last year's final. That was a little bit of a unfortunate, how can I say, boredom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want last year's
because I remember being there on site and honestly, like most people were there for BLG, but yeah, it wasn't that close as far as I remember.
Yeah, I really would like a 5-game final so that I could maybe wake up early at like 6 a.m. and perhaps still catch the last match and at least the trophy lift. That'd be nice. But I think actually as well for like, I think for League of Legends esports on the whole, the best thing that could happen here is Gen.G T1 in the final and Chovy wins against Faker, so win a title internationally, but specifically against Faker as well, and finally maybe use that as like the catalyst to start building the storylines beyond Faker for like Worlds and stuff. I can't imagine Riot not having Faker as the main face of Worlds still, since he's won it 2 times in a row. But like, keep saying it, but like they've got to start planning for a Fakerless ecosystem, and Chovy is obviously the successor. So yeah, I think Chovy getting a win here against Faker specifically would be so good for this like all storylines, all narrative building, hyping up for Worlds, presuming that Gen.G and T1 would probably both get there. But yeah, we'll see on that one. And I noticed as well, before we were quite through, I think while we were talking about the lower bracket final here, I got open your article, Davide, and I don't know what kind of how you're doing this influence, but you've got us here to draw out the exact same bracket that you did as well. I feel like I've been manipulated without realizing it.
I guess you gotta trust me.
But I mean, that's
I mean,
good,
I feel like this is kind of
it's
like,
fine if you're right.
It's kind of like it's like yeah, the my issue is like I forgot to do the playing ones because I think I would have probably gotten most of them, probably probably I don't know, sure, yeah, I think I would have I would have probably put G2 and BLG, but the whole thing for me is like this is very kind of like the MCOI beating BLG can be kind of over optimistic, but I feel like there's gotta be something that goes out of like reasonable, rational.
It's not just always the favorite wins every game, is it? It's got to be some upsets.
Yeah, I was like literally looking at the upper bracket and was like, okay, there are 4 matchups, 3 are very close. So like I think Gen.G and T1 are probably the 2 that I would probably like sign right now that they will go through. AL was like, I think they were so consistent. Like I can see Fly taking a game, I don't see Fly taking a series. So I told myself like, what's the team that potentially like kind of struggle? And that's potentially BLG because of the kind of issues they had, but also at the same time, just stylistically speaking, I think it could be a good matchup for MCOI. I think it would be a one-shot thing only, though. It's like if BLG and MCOI have a rematch, I don't see BLG losing that. You know.
Yeah, and like you guys are commenting on, I've watched. This will be my 15th World Championship that I've watched. There's only been one tournament where in the main stage, if you just went by seed/region, you would have gotten it right. Every other tournament, something happens. Somebody loses a match they're not supposed to. Somebody wins a match they're not supposed to. And if you want, when you're doing these brackets, if you're not picking one upset, you're going to be wrong more often than not, because the simple truth is like any given Sunday, man. You gotta show up on that stage. You gotta play your games, and like everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yep. Shall we go on? We'll lock those in then. Gen.G's winning MSI, and I'm gonna get the points for it hopefully. Let's maybe have
enjoy that skin.
Well, I didn't do the play-ins either, so I don't know what's gonna. If we get 100% on the playoffs. Maybe is there anything I could get? I'm not sure. I didn't even see the rewards, to be fair.
I think you get some.
You get all the ultimate skins.
Oh
yeah,
damn!
You'll get all the ultimate
nuts.
skins.
That's crazy.
Even though technically I already have like player Ezreal and Spirit Guard Udyr in my account. So
I have.
Actually, I also think Elemental is sluts.
Nice.
I just don't have the KDA all out one.
Yeah, I've got 3. Shouts at Riot. All of them came from basic hex tech chests over the years.
Same.
You're the reason that they reduced the chest to make people pay. They
we don't want to talk. We don't want to talk about it because like I'm pretty sure I am. I have 12 legendary skins in the last like year and a half from Hextech chests. It's my open rate. I'm stealing from somebody somewhere. I don't know who it is, but no complaints here.
To be fair, like since they did that, I'm not sure I bought another skin with real money, so I understood it. To be fair, and actually,
I've honestly only bought one in my entire like 10 years of
oh
the.
shit! Damn.
Yeah, I've only like bought a High Noon Yasuo that was actually on sale, because I used to be a Yasuo main when I started playing the game, like back in season 4, and I really liked the High Noon one, and then just happened to get a lot of like Yasuo skins but from Hextech chest, and I've never put money in the League client ever again.
I just
So
bought my first skin in I just bought my first skin in years because it showed up in my shop. You bet that I bought Shamrock Malphite for 80% off. I went and I paid that $5 of RP so fast. The first skin I ever bought in League of Legends was Emerald Tarek, back when it was literally just green Tarek, and I thought it was the coolest thing. So when I got offered Shamrock Malphite, those are the skins we'll pay for, Riot. Like the really old, crappy ones that you've kept in, those are the ones that I'll shell for. I don't care if I get Project Fiora or whatever. Give me green Malphite, bro.
I think I got the Nasus. I don't remember the name of it now. The Nasus one where he turns purple. No. Shit, I can't remember. I can't remember any of them now. And
Darkfire Nasus? No.
And he has like when he does his dance, like a little boombox comes out.
Oh, Infernal Nasus. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Infernal Nasus.
I think that's the first one I got.
That one's great.
I got lucky actually on the pick'ems on Masters Toronto. Everyone's pick'ems got fucked in that tournament because in the first round of their like playoffs, it was first seed versus play-ins teams, and all the first seeds lost. So almost all the things got screwed up. So because everyone did so bad, I basically got nothing right except I had Fnatic to get to the finals, I think, or I had them to get to the lower bracket final. So just their like 3 or 4 game lower bracket run was enough to get me in the top 10, which got me a nice little gun buddy in Valorant as well. They did cool ones actually. I don't know if you like for people
the
who don't watch
gun
Valorant.
buddy?
No, not the right one. But you in Valorant you have these gun buddies where it's like a little like key ring kind of thing that's hanging off your gun.
Yeah.
And because that was in Canada as well, there was 2, depending on like where you finished, you could get a little maple syrup gun buddy. And I've got a little gold maple syrup.
Ooh, that's nice.
For getting in the top 10.
Oh no, nice. I missed out, dude. I haven't played Valorant in a hot minute, but I'm a very bad Reyna.
I'm very bad at everything, but there you go. So I'm not going to be showing off too much my gun buddy, but it's pretty cool. Right, let's we can maybe go a little bit longer, but just to kind of talk about some general stuff then. I guess the main thing outside of MSI is that we're in the off season. So there's nothing really being confirmed too much just yet, but there's plenty of rumors, and I guess the most shocking one, at least from the LEC point of view, we can talk about some of the LTA ones as well. But Humanoid is out of Fnatic, allegedly, which I suppose isn't a massive surprise. It kind of feels like that relationship has lasted longer than perhaps it should have done anyway. But Poby is coming in from Fnatic's academy, so we're gonna have Fnatic Poby, which kind of sent everyone into meltdown really on like LEC Twitter. What were your guys' thoughts on that? I guess like tier 1 level, it's the only thing we've seen of Poby was when he replaced Faker for 5 minutes, and that's kind of what everyone's harping back to. And it obviously T1 on the whole were pretty disastrous when that happened. But then that's how much of that is like Poby being an academy player that wasn't ever expected to be stepping up at that point, combined with the fact that Faker is like T1's mid laner / coach / shot caller, and without him everything does like naturally just fall apart anyway. So I don't know, you guys like as down on that as everyone seems to be?
No, I'm much less down on it in that I think if you swap the single greatest player to ever touch the game for an academy player who hasn't had time to integrate with the roster, you're gonna notice a couple growing pains. I don't think that should be particularly surprising to anybody. One of my favorite thing about this is all of the Poby nicknames, because Poby has the funniest nicknames, especially coming from like Cadril fans and stuff. The Killable Demon King. Some roads lead to him. The like mini faker memes are hilarious, but the truth is and shouts out to Sheep Esports who reported this, that like it sounds like Fnatic had other people in mind, and they said no. And so like, do I think that, especially given the attention that T1 Academy has gotten since Reckless went over to join, and then, obviously Reckless has become, even an even bigger presence with LR. I think T1 Academy, if you're going to look for a developmental player, I think T1 continues to show that they have a very strong, very well researched academy system. And like, if you want a player with name recognition, people like Poby, man. Like, they might not think he's excellent, but if you're Fnatic and you've been running with Humanoid for as long as you have, I'm glad that a change is being made. And I may not think he's going to be like the best mid laner in the league, but I like Poby and I want to see him on the team. I just think that like whatever curse has been cast upon Fnatic over the past like 6 years or whatever, I don't know if Poby can undo it, because it seems like this team just cannot stop flopping when it counts. And I don't know where to point that, but I am excited for Poby. I'm just not sure he's going to fix anything.
I kind of want to be very, very critical about this.
Get in there, bro.
Please do.
Like, I don't have anything against the player necessarily.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, of course not.
I think actually Poby back in 2023 was put in a situation where he wasn't actually the one that was supposed to be there in the first place. So I think, okay, like Faker had the injury, someone had to step up. It was kind of a forced situation, and he was clearly not ready for it. The one thing for me that really bothers me currently is like, of course, I agree with the fact that probably Humanoid has to be replaced. Like, if you get to the point where you want to replace your mid laner, heading to the summer split where you're actually fighting for World, something must have happened that has completely like affected and destroyed the kind of the dynamic of the team. My issue is like, why you're getting this replacement. It's like, you could say that it's the T1 brand name. You could say that they saw something in Poby, but I don't think Poby as a player has stood out to me as much. Or like, there were probably a lot of other Korean imports that are worth picking up over him in the current moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, he was like clearly the best in the LCKCL. And honestly, I just don't know how he would probably fit into this team. Like, what kind of role are you trying to put him in? Because like, I could agree that you should technically change both mid and top, but changing 2 solo lanes at this current moment in time also sounds a little bit like suicidal. Like, I think Oscarin has been underperforming a little bit. I think he can get his he can get his form back, but it's very, very like, it's a very volatile, like a very big gamble. And for a team like Fnatic, you should be reducing those. Or at least you try to do that with your bot lane this year by getting Upset and Mickey. You have technically a good jungler who's already flippy by himself, because Razor is flippy. And then you try to add up more gambling stuff, like more risky stuff in a roster that is technically should be a top 3 in Europe. And so this is just honestly doesn't sit right to me. Like, you could say that it's probably like they got a cheap deal, or like T1, like they saw that the T1 Poby thing would probably drive them enough like commercial value, or like potentially upsets outside of competitive. But from a competitive, like a pure result focused like point perspective, I don't really see this as a good pickup.
I think you're bang on. Like,
Yeah,
that is
I
the
just don't
thing.
see
Is
it.
like, you brought it up there with Razork. Is like, for all the individual like benefits of like Poby and like Razork at his peak and all of that, you ask me if I want to consistently take Razork and Poby in a 2v2 against these other jungle mids in LEC. No, thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like I just do not feel like this is going to solve any of the problems that Fnatic has, and that's not Poby's fault. Like if Poby comes over to Fnatic and they keep doing Fnatic things, I think it would be a mistake to be like, oh, Poby's awful and he's the reason for this. I think this team has deeper seated problems that have been on display for several splits in a row. And I think, as you're talking about, like, listen, if you want to do a development year with Poby or whatever, that's fine. I don't see why you pull the trigger at like for summer.
This point in time, yeah.
Yeah. At this point in summer, unless, as you're mentioning, something in the team dynamic is degraded with Humanoid, like you're not going to be able to play that split. For and that's not to say like Humanoid is the problem or whatever, but your mid laner is central to your game plan. You need that trust, you need that communication between like him and his teammates. And whatever has happened, Fnatic decided that pulling the cord with during like an incredibly busy time as well for like other teams with MSI into EWC right back into domestic play. Like there aren't a ton of like hot prospects on the market. You're picking up people's like sister teams and their academy team players for the most part, unless you're willing to shell out for a big buyout. And I hope I am wrong, but I think this Fnatic will just look like Fnatic, but with the name Poby over their mid lane champion.
Like the only one good thing I would probably say that it's kind of like an assumption, I think. Poby has always given me kind of the impression that he's not the play, like he's a mid laner, kind of can adjust to the team's needs. I've always seen like Humanoid being kind of the player that defines alongside the other carrier players what a team can play like.
That's
I
really
feel
good
like Poby can potentially be the person that can kind of is willingly adjusting to how Razork or Upset or like Fnatic's other carriers want to play around. Though my biggest issue is still like, okay, you're adjusting, but what Fnatic needs is another strong carry carry player between mid and top that delivers, and I don't see Poby being that solution. It's like I can see a world where Poby's presence increases the floor for Fnatic in like in a short term or like over the next few months because of like the entire dynamic creates like a more balanced or like more stable environment to work around. But in terms of like ceiling or like potential, I don't see Fnatic getting closer to the top three, which is technically G2, KC, and MKOI by doing this move.
Yep. Davide nails it on the head right once again. It's just like,
and then I will be probably proven wrong because I'm a terrible
Fnatic wins
analyst.
Summer, they win Worlds. Poby is the greatest player of all time,
and he's the real.
I mean, just imagine
successor.
if Fnatic somehow gets to T1 gets to Worlds, then you get Poby against Faker. That would be insane, though. Like I would be down to seeing that shit.
Okay, yeah. If we're gonna be wrong, I need them to make Worlds, and I need the Poby versus Faker. That teaser trailer would go so hard for that series.
Well, what I've been seeing as well, what I've been seeing from like Spanish League Twitter, is the rumors are that Oscar is like 90% chance to be changed as well, and then I guess you could have you could get a more carry top laner and let Poby try to like support Razork. But then what I've also been seeing from there was that like where Irrelevant is out of BDS, that he's been having offers but like I can't remember if it was like him saying he was waiting because they knew that they knew there was a top 5 team that's changing their top laner
Team, yeah.
or something like that, and he's waiting for an offer for there, which or if he had an offer, I can't remember exactly what it was, but Irrelevant doesn't seem like it kind of fills that gap. And what I would have thought, right, if you're trying to get Razork a bit more support and someone that will play towards him, imagine if there was a former LEC winner known for making their junglers look good, former LEC and LCS winner, and he's played for Fnatic before. Welcome back, Fnatic Niski. It works. Clearly Dardo wasn't up for that because no mention of that in the Sheep article either. I don't know what's going on with Niski though. Maybe he's just retired now. He seems to do well streaming, so there we go.
He's chilling.
I
think he said if he didn't find like good offers, I think next season he would probably just retire. I remember like seeing that.
Again, like, like we were talking about, like, sure, Oscar's out, fine, I understand why that decision is being made. I don't know who the hell you're picking up that is like, oh, okay, now we're top 3 with Poby and this guy in top lane. I'd have to go like actually look at the GCD, but like I can't think of any FAs that like are coming up that when I think of their name, I'm like, oh yeah, this will save Fnatic.
This is usually where Ethan comes in, because like Ethan comes with the ERL knowledge that I unfortunately do not have enough.
On the article for Poby, it was saying that like the other options were ERL players, which is not surprising, I guess. But
like
yeah, I don't
I've known, I remember it was like Oman and then someone else. I think like I remember actually Oman because I when I used to play like in the amateur league, people have like talked about this guy, and he was, I think they had like rated him very highly. So it's good to see that he has been like slowly like progress in that sense.
Yeah.
I just think that let's see how the lane changes in that sense, because I really doubt that they can find someone who is clearly better than Oscar. I'm not really sure what that would mean for Fnatic, because
I suppose at this point
really
they just got to gamble, really. Like their roster should have been good enough probably to win an LEC, and if they fucked it twice in a row and like just totally fumbled, I guess it's their last chance really. And if they did it with the same roster 3 times in a row, then not only are you looking at the players, but you're looking at like coaching staff or staff in general, thinking why did they not try and change something? So it's kind of do or die really. We've got some changes.
Do you see a world where? Well, yeah. Do you see a world where like Fnatic implodes after the end of the year? Like, what would be like a result that would say we need to restructure the whole thing?
What are they?
Like, if for me, feel like Fnatic doesn't make it to Worlds, the entire roster goes boom.
I'm just checking
I think you could keep 1 or 2. Like, I think you could decide to like build around Upset, build around Mickey, build around Razork. Like you could pick a player, but yeah, man, if Fnatic isn't at Worlds, I don't know how that upper leadership meeting at the end of year about like the results compared to the goals that it looks like they were setting by trying to acquire the roster and like setting up the way that they did. I absolutely see most of the Fnatic players finding homes elsewhere come 2026 if this team does not shape up, because the org has made clear, at least in their messaging, that like, we want to win again. Winning is part of Fnatic's like heritage, and LEC is part of our legacy. It's important that we're competitive. They're just not. Like, finals after finals after finals, they just fall flat to G2. It frankly feels like flashbacks to like the start of like the G2 God team dominance, when like Fnatic was just clearly a step behind them when that rivalry first sort of started to die away. Fnatic wants back in, and they have not found a way back in. And I don't know if you can like go into 2026 and be like, let's do that again.
Yeah. Well, looking at their contract situation as well, the only players that they would have definitely had under contract next year, had they wanted to keep them, is Razork, which I could see him staying because he stayed through like other changes anyway. Oscar, which they're maybe getting rid of now anyway, and Mickey X. So Upset, like Humanoid is fine, like he's gone anyway. His contract would have been up this year. Upset's contract is up, and he's just had a MVP split as well in spring. So I could imagine I'd be stunned if he re-signs before free agency at the very least. I'm sure he'll explore his options. He likes playing with Mickey. Maybe like he somehow like Mickey begs to get his contract ripped up and goes somewhere else with Upset. Well, it depends. I mean, yeah, we see how it goes with Poby and unnamed top laner. Maybe it turns around and they stick it out. But I could see a world where maybe like Upset goes for free agent, G2 try and do a buyout deal for Mickey X, get Upset and Mickey on G2, and suddenly they look a bit of a different beast again with that bot lane. But yeah, we're a while away from all that yet. I think that'll do for this week. There's a few other roster moves we could go over as well, but I think maybe that the next episode would probably be like before. It would still be off season anyway, so we can go through a few more of them. This is just a bit of a stunning one that came out this week. But yeah, let's leave it there then. I think next time we chat, guys, we'll know if we're right about Gen G. So let's see. Enjoy the rest of the tournament, Nick. Have fun there on the ground. And thanks for listening, everyone.
Absolutely will do.
Yep.
Yeah. Have a good one, everybody.
Yep. Cheers. See you guys.
See you.